Good morning. Please be seated. Hello, virtual audience. It's so nice to see you. I know you're already seated. We're just waiting for the people in DC to find their seats. Excellent. Day 2 of Transforming Transportation 2023. Our mission on day 2 is the same as day 1, but probably a little bit more intense. How do we accelerate towards green and inclusive mobility? I am your conference moderator, Femi OK. Please greet the people close to you. If you like them. Virtual audience, I know you do this all the time. You're way ahead of us. You've told each other where you're from, why you're in the chat, and we look forward to you participating. Q&A is in this room. A microphone is here. We have a chat moderator who is also in this room. Online, you can have the conversation and take it far beyond our conversation here and online using hashtag TTDC23. Our focus this morning is on resilience. If you feel as transport professionals you have challenges regarding unexpected shocks, resilience strategy, how do you plan for the unplannable? You are going to want to lean in to our first keynote speaker. Vice Prime Minister for the Restoration of Ukraine, Oleksandr Kubrakov, welcome to Transforming Transportation 2023. The virtual floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I want to greet all participants of the conference and express my gratitude to the World Bank, team for its support of Ukraine on the way of our victory. We highly appreciate the cooperation with the World Bank, both in period until the war. We realized a lot of projects, and especially after the start of large-scale war against Ukraine. The bank support within the framework of current projects made it possible to make quick decisions to ensure the interrupted functioning of our railway system and road industry of Ukraine. I hope for the same decisions in field of housing and communal services. We will work on these new projects together with World Bank team. As far as you know, from the first days of the war, of the large full-scale invasion, and almost daily, Ukrainian infrastructure became one of the main targets of the enemy. And starting from the first hours of the war, starting on 24th of February, our transportation infrastructure was attacked. During first hours, all key airports were attacked, then railway systems, then bridges, road bridges, and it's continuing. Thanks for support of the World Bank. Last year was presented first draft of Ukraine Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment Report. Very soon we will have second wave of this report, and according to figures which we received last year on June 1st, the number of losses was estimated at the level about $100 billion, and total recovery needs are estimated more than $340 billion US. Now we're preparing new report with more updated figures. It will be just first figures will be on the date of the first year of the large-scale invasion. Regarding like our priorities, where were our key tasks during first days of the war? First of all, it's military logistics, maintaining of our transportation system on national level. I mean, first of all, it's functioning of our railway system. First of all, this is our main roads, international roads. First of all, border cross checkpoints. This was critical for our military assistance, military support. Our military people, they usually said that this is a war of logistics, not only war of armies. Who win logistics? next you win the war. So we are winning logistics at this moment. It was critical task. So for us, first priorities of recovery were bridges, railway bridges first of all, and road bridges on the main international roads. During last year, we were able to repair 41 road bridges, 28 bridges were repaired, about 80 temporary crossings were constructed. We are using actively, thanks for our partners, our allies, we're actively using modular bridges. We're installing them very soon. It takes usually a few days, and it's reliable and good solution at this moment, at this stage. About 100 kilometers of roads have been cleared. About 120 kilometers of roads were repaired, and we are not stopping. In recently deoccupied regions, we are continuing to repair, we are continuing to restore. At the same time, almost 900 railway kilometers facilities were restored, different objects, different bridges, stations, because Ukrainian railways is also critical for military assistance, for humanitarian support, and as well for our economy, because our economy is still working. Yes, we dropped significantly during previous year, but anyway, all our key industries, they survived, they are working, they are paying taxes, and they help us to win this war. After our success last year in Kharkiv region on battlefield and Kherson region, Russian Federation, they started attacks on our energy sector. First attack was large-scale attack was with hundreds of missiles, happened on 10th of October last year, and starting from this date, almost each week, almost each 10 days, we have similar attacks. I would say that, I wouldn't say that we get used for such attacks, but fortunately, and with the help of our allies, with more advanced air defense, with passive defense, of which again our transportation ministry in charge, we were able to survive during this winter, and now fortunately we don't have significant problems with electricity. We feel a recovery of our economy, and again it's very important for all of us. And here I would like to say thank you for World Bank team for providing us financing for buying new auto transformers instead of damaged one for our main electricity substations. It's critical, and again, thanks for World Bank team for such fast and rapid decisions which we received at the end of previous year. Now I hope we will be more prepared for the next heating season, because we are again, we will be ready with new auto transformers. We are constructing new more protected electricity substations, and again supplying of air defense, more advanced air defense system from allies. It will be really important. What is also during this period of time was important, it's signing of Black Sea Grain Initiative with United Nations in Turkey from our side. This is critical. It was allow us to export about 25 million tons of agricultural products. Since the date of signing, it was July 22nd of previous year. I hope that initiative will be prolonged for the next 4 months. We are working closely with United Nations, with Turkey, with all our key allies on rollover of this agreement. In parallel, we developed our Danube cluster, because on the river Danube we have 3 ports. They were not so efficient before the war, but since the 24th of February, they showed figures they didn't show in any period of the history, in Soviet period or in the independence period of Ukraine. They grow in 10 times, and now it's growing and growing. So because it's one of the most reliable and important channel for import-export of goods from and out of Ukraine. If you're talking about public transport, again, all cities trying to maintain. We had a lot of problems, huge problems when electricity supplies, electricity system, energy system was attacked. But just if you couldn't imagine, for example, in the most complicated days in Kharkiv, when enemy was very close to Kharkiv, hundreds of thousands people each day, they spent nights in metropolitan, in subway, in metropolitan of Kharkiv, and it was continued several months. And in this view, I mean, public transport role is even more important, even more critical. Now we are trying, again, with the help of World Bank, with the help of our other IFIs, to procure new electric transport for our main cities, which were recently deoccupied, in which we lost hundreds units of buses, of trolley buses, of trams, and now we just in this process because it's becoming more critical. Again, in this context, I would like to note that the priority direction of our work with World Bank remains the implementation of existing projects and the initiation of new ones in the fields of transport, housing, and communal service. This is all directions in which we are in charge for. And again, at this year, during this year, we are focusing only on the most critical objects in deoccupied regions. We understand that the wars continue, but for us it's a challenge, again, to bring people to the city back, to provide them jobs. And it's impossible without school, without providing at least basic services in hospitals, and at least in case if we want to start even small repairments of housing. Also, in parallel, we are working closely with World Bank team on procurement reform. We are trying to adopt our public procurement procedures to make it more closer to World Bank procedures, for which with such procedures we worked many years, and for us it's absolutely acceptable and a perfect solution in terms of anti-corruption issues and accountability. At the same time, one of our priorities in terms of rebuilding the country, strengthening our cooperation with state partners and donors. In this regards, donor coordination platform, which was introduced a couple of months ago, it's a very important step for us, because at this stage it will help us to coordinate our activities, our priorities with all key allies, with all key international financial institutions. We are on the same side, we are on the same page, and I think coordination will be more strengthened in upcoming weeks and months. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I would like to express my hope that World Bank will become one of the leading participants of this platform as our permanent, reliable partner with high standards of project implementation. Concluding my speech, I would like to thank the World Bank once again for the prompt response to events in Ukraine and support in the reconstruction of Ukraine's infrastructure, and express my hope for active participation in joint projects in future. Hope to see Anna Berde and other team of the World Bank very soon in Kyiv. Thank you.
Deputy Prime Minister, do not disconnect yet. because we asked you at Transforming Transportation if you would like to pre-record your keynote, because life is a little hectic in Ukraine, to say the least, and you said no, you wanted to do it live. Why?
Because we have this possibility, and for us, we prefer more live discussion, interaction. We have this possibility at this moment.
We thank you for being live with us. And I'm going to introduce the next speaker, who's also talking about resilience, and the next speaker connects with you. So I am not going to say officially goodbye to you, because the next speaker is going to do that for me. Anna Bieda is the Regional VP for Europe and Central Asia. Anna, welcome. Please join us.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and wonderful to be here to address the forum, and especially as it is the 20th anniversary of the Transforming Transportation Conference. I would like to, first of all, acknowledge all the esteemed guests and all the World Bank staff and World Bank management that are here, but I would also very much like to say hello to my very dear friend, the Vice Prime Minister, who's been with us this morning. And I wanted to say before he has to disconnect two things. First of all, this forum is dedicated to resilience. Today's discussion is dedicated to resilience. And I think we will all agree that Ukraine and Ukrainians define resilience. So that is, for me, a very, very important point that I wanted to make. The second thing I wanted to say before Mr. Kubrakov has to disconnect is that indeed we'll see each other next week. I will be traveling back to Ukraine, and we are going to have a set of very important meetings, including discussing our update of the rapid damage and needs assessment that looks at a full year of damage and needs from a full year of war in the country. So this will be very important discussions, and the Vice Prime Minister is indeed leading this charge, and we all need to continue to support both the short-term and the longer-term needs of Ukraine. So great to see you, Oleksandr. Look forward so much to see you in a few days, and thank you again for being here with the family of transport staff of the World Bank and all of our clients around the world. Thank you. So, yes. Maybe connecting a little bit to the situation in Ukraine, unfortunately, we are living amid a time of crisis, and it's become quite normal for us to think about crisis management, crisis response. And as a global community, we're living in this increasingly volatile world and need to be prepared for unanticipated challenges and crisis. And to this extent, I think we heard it from the Vice Prime Minister, but we also know from the work that we do, and you know very well from the work that you do and are leading, that there are clear links between transport and resilience, and they're really dependent on each other. First of all, transport's physical infrastructure needs to be able to withstand disasters, both natural and man-made. Second, logistics systems and supply chains need to ensure the consistent flow of goods, even in the face of extreme volatility. Thirdly, transport system need to ensure continuity of critical services and mobility, even in the wake of emergencies. When any of these three links break or fails, countries become more vulnerable to risks. At the World Bank, we work with countries all across these three areas to anticipate risks and to minimize their impact. On the first one, quality physical infrastructure, we work with client countries to identify vulnerabilities or gaps in road, rail, maritime, and aviation networks and proactively address them. In the face of increased climate risk, the importance of this cannot be overstated. This is especially problematic for small island developing states, who are perhaps the most vulnerable to climate risks and are largely not equipped with transport backup plans. When disaster strikes in these island nations, for example, damage to transport infrastructure typically accounts for a large portion of the economic losses. Many of these countries are only equipped with one airport, one major port, and a few arterial roads. In that context, damage to one critical asset can quickly paralyze traffic to and from and around the island. In response to these challenges, the World Bank has increased our assistance to these nations with 8 transport projects launched in small island developing states in 2019 alone. As we work with developing countries to build new infrastructure, we need to adjust construction standards to the very best possible technology. In Nepal, for example, World Bank support for the East-West Highway incorporates a sustainable approach to planning. The project considered not only how the road would work for people, but also for the environment. A comprehensive risk assessment for the project called for the use of bioengineering and nature-based solutions to protect watersheds from erosion, to guard against floods, and to accomplish large-scale afforestation. Wildlife management, including crossings for local wildlife such as Bengal tigers, was another crucial component of the project. Another example in this action is the World Bank-financed bus rapid transit system in Dakar. While constructing the BRT, the city took the opportunity to install 40 kilometers of new drainage that will offer much better protection against flooding. We also need to maintain this infrastructure to ensure its durability. A recent World Bank report found that the cost of road maintenance in Africa is likely to triple in the coming decades due to climate change. Ensuring sound maintenance is the first climate adaptation response because it is typically cheaper and more efficient to maintain infrastructure than rebuilding them later. The World Bank is also actively engaging in the second link between transport and resilience, that being modern logistics systems and supply chains. The fallout from the supply chain crisis that began in 2020 is still being felt. This is especially true in sub-Saharan Africa, where some 73 million people, 10% of the population, are facing food insecurity and even in some cases famine. Along with the pandemic and the Russian blockade of Ukrainian ports, as we heard, aging fleets, outdated procedures, and missed opportunities for upgrading port technology all contribute to these now famous bottlenecks and shortages. Global trade is evolving, but there's so much more to do. The average truck used in many Sahelian countries is more than 20 years old. The cost of crossing borders in sub-Saharan Africa can add up to more than 400% of the value of products being shipped. None of the container ports in sub-Saharan Africa rank in the top 100 ports in our latest Containers Ports Performance Index, a metric for port efficiency. And only about a third of sub-Saharan African ports have an operational port community system, a critical tool to expedite port operations and trade clearance procedures. In response, the World Bank is working on a new generation of trade and transport connectivity projects in sub-Saharan Africa. Informed by logistics modeling, these operations are designed to reduce the cost of food in the region and build resilience in the supply chain. These projects combine hard infrastructure investments with soft trade facilitation policies to support communities in the region where households spend 50 to 70% of their income on food. And finally, the third link between transport and resilience, transport's role in the wake of emergencies. Even with the best laid plans, as we development professionals often cannot stop global crises from happening, but we can help countries prepare for them, to minimize damage when disaster does strike, and to rebuild stronger. In Ukraine, for example, the Vice Prime Minister mentioned this, our most recent operation is a framework project. It has an initial $50 million grant to start rebuilding transport infrastructure in the country. With an additional funding of $535 million, which we're currently mobilizing, the efforts will also help restore essential bridges and railways, relink communities, mitigate impacts of Black Sea shipping disruptions. Specifically, the project will support the purchase of modular bridges, equipment and materials to urgently repair damaged road-to-bridge connections and vital rail lines. It will also help to finance purchase of flatbed wagons and additional rolling stock to expand the railway's capacity to move cargo in containers. The takeaway here is that resilience and transport go hand in hand. When transport infrastructure and systems are resilient, countries are better able to recover after tough times. The challenge ahead of us are enormous, but so are the opportunities. So I encourage all of you to think outside the box and to help develop tangible solutions that we need to promote resilient transport and sustainable development. It's through our capacity to innovate and collective energy that we will make a real difference on the ground. With that, I wish you a great day, and I really thank you for having me here today. Thank you so much.
Anna, before you go,
Yes.
you come on stage as a vice president, but you leave the stage something more important. Walk off the stage and I will tell our audience what that is. But watch this. Okay. The walk of a managing director of operations of the World Bank. Thank you, Anna Viera. Things to do, places to be. All right. Transforming Transportation is co-hosted by the World Bank and the World Resources Institute. It is a great partnership, so it is a pleasure to have Stinger van Veldhoven with us, Vice President and Regional Director for Europe of the World Resources Institute. Stinger, so nice to see you in person, not on a computer. Welcome.
Yes, I think that's what all of us experience nowadays, right? What a pleasure it is to be back in 3D with each other. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may log into to. I hope you had a very successful day yesterday, and I heard some very, very good remarks about this. And so it's a real honor and pleasure for me to be here with you today, celebrating 20 years of transforming transportation. And it's more needed than ever. And I think we will all be discussing that today. Please also allow me to thank Mr. Kubrakov for his remarks. The very fact that he spoke to us about reconstruction is, I think, a testimony both to the terrible destruction, but also a beacon of hope that things can get better. And speaking about reconstruction, let me also thank and acknowledge Mrs. Viera for the support of the World Bank and also for their support for the topic that we are discussing today. And of course, for hosting us in this room today. But on my start of my speech, I actually want to take you out of this room briefly. A couple of weeks ago, I visited some of our in-country work. And of course, you all know, our car got stuck in traffic. While our driver was trying to cross a completely blocked set of crossroads, I was staring out of the window. And I saw a man on an old red motorcycle trying to navigate this crazy and dangerous jungle of rubber and steel all around him. All of a sudden, his motor hit a giant hole in the crumbling side of the road, and he fell. And the people that were waiting in the shadow of this big toll road, in the midst of those exhaust fumes, and I just mentioned it, the average truck is over 20 years old, they tried to get to him, but they couldn't reach him. He struggled with his bike and finally managed to get up, got limpingly back on his bike and continued. And I can say that I could only hope that the road did not hurt his leg and his ability to provide for himself and his family permanently. Worldwide, we see people maneuvering cars, maneuvering traffic, bordering recklessness. And this is not an incident. This is not nature. This is the result of us centering our cities around cars. So when we talk about resilience, we also have to talk about how do we protect the most vulnerable in transport. And as cities grow, these problems are likely to grow. We expect that over the next 30 years, 2.5 billion people and as many as 1 billion more vehicles will be added to urban centers. And the car-centric model just deepens the negative impact on air quality, greenhouse gases, road injuries, fatalities, congestions, and equity. The car-centric solution to congestion, a bypass or a toll road, or to emissions, the private EV, is actually a solution that only very few people can afford. And I understand you had some great debate about EV yesterday, but whether you like it or not, 200 EVs in a small street is still a traffic jam. And congestion is not just a waste of time, it's also a waste of money. According to UN Habitat, developing countries in Asia lost 2 to 5% of their annual GDP to congestion. People in Lagos, Nigeria spend 2.21 hours daily, these ciphers are very precise, right? 2.21 hours daily in traffic congestion commuting to work. Lagos has 264 cars per kilometers, as against the 11 cars per kilometers world average. We're clogging up our cities. And we can do so much better. Before I joined WRI about a year and a half ago, I was minister in the Dutch government responsible for decarbonizing transport, public transport and active mobility. So you can see that I still speak with a certain passion about this topic, even though I deal with more topics now today. So I'm very, very happy to be here. We made many investments in those years. But I think that actually the investments, the achievement that I'm most proud of was a mental shift. Instead of putting the solution, a road, a tram, a train, central, which was a given in Dutch politics. I'm sure you'll do much better than we did. But that was, of course, they had a certain political symbolic value, so they were very important. We shifted towards putting the problem central, and then trying to find what was the best combination of modes of transport to actually solve that problem, including active mobility. And with that approach, we started to make different choices. We made the densest parts of the cities actually car-free, as without cars, you can accommodate much more people on foot and bike. One car, the space that one car takes on the road, even without the parking spaces, equals 26 bikes. To give you a sense of how many more people you can accommodate in a densely populated area if you take out some cars. Improving and cleaning up public transport and creating safe cycling lanes to get to the city in a clean and safe way. And also investing in more fluid traffic on those designated traffic routes. So to get to that other situation, we need to start thinking system, plan, system, finance, system. Active mobility does not replace public transport or decarbonization of private cars. They must all come together and work as a system. But in urban areas, about 50% of the trips are typically under 5 kilometers. It's about 2 miles. The people walking and cycling now, as they do in many countries of the global south, actually do so in very dangerous and unhealthy circumstances. So as soon as they can afford it, they'll buy a car. Yet if people do not need to be on the highway, we should actually make sure that they have a good, clean and safe alternative. Better for the economy, better for climate, better for people. For all the benefits, I could go on. Yet still many of the funds are still flowing to the individual modalities and not to those integrated solutions. It's much harder, and I found this myself, it's much harder, even in a country like the Netherlands, to actually find the funding to fund a cycling lane. It's harder to get funding for cycling lanes and the investment needed to close city centers than for the next highway. And that should change. As part of a system approach, it should be as easy to finance a safe pedestrian crossing or a cycling lane as it is to finance a toll road. Policymakers and politicians, I dare to say, have a large role to play. Spatial planning, smart incentives, including parking levies, car-free zones, will literally free up space and resources. They will generate revenues. Smart combinations between public and private financing mechanisms will be key. And of course, we have to make sure that everything we build is climate-proof. The benefits are clear, and for all the economic figures I could mention, let me go back to the man on his red motorcycle and the people that live on the streets where he fell. One study in the city of Accra, Ghana, by the World Health Organization found that scaling up sustainable mobility could save up to 5,500 premature deaths. I think we have a lot to do today. I wish you a very successful conference. Thank you.